Senator Catherine Cortez Masto is the granddaughter of a Mexican immigrant grandfather and the product of Las Vegas public schools. She comes from a strong union family, and labor has been key to every one of her victories. She held her election night party last year in a carpenters union hall. She won re-election by acknowledging voters' concern about the anxiety of the economy and big corporations that keep raising prices on ordinary people. As a member of the Senate Finance Committee, she continues to be a strong voice for the middle class and working families of America. It is my pleasure to welcome to Springfield, Illinois, and the land of Lincoln and the best Democratic Party in the nation, the history maker, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. Senator.
Good morning. Well, I just have to say hello, Illinois Democrats. And the incredible county chairs, you are fantastic. I can hear you all the way on the other side of the building. It's incredible. I am so excited to be here. I'm always, always pleased to be with my good friend, Senator Dick Durbin. And I know Tammy Duckworth, I was listening to her. She's just incredible. I had an opportunity to visit with your governor, Governor Pritzker, this morning, meet some of your incredible Democratic leaders across this state. What an incredible job you have done, and most importantly, glad to be here with all of you. I have to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to Illinois. Thank you for your help with my reelection. I have to tell you, that was one of the longest election nights of my career. It took 5 days to call it, from election night on Tuesday to Saturday. And because Nevada was going to decide control of the Senate, I guess what happens in Vegas doesn't stay in Vegas, because there was nonstop coverage of the election, not only in the country, but the entire world. People were watching, they were waiting, they were texting us, and they were refreshing their screens all the time. Talk about pressure. A lot of people thought we couldn't do it, but I knew we could. I know my state. I know if we got out there and I talked to everyone and showed up, we were gonna make this happen. For those of you who may be less familiar with my story and this recent election in Nevada, let me just give you a background about myself. I also want to talk about what we did in Nevada, in a purple state, to win, and I think that's a key here for so many across the country. But I'm a third-generation Nevadan, and I'm very proud of that. I was born in Las Vegas. My father came there as a 5-year-old. His father, my grandfather's from Chihuahua, Mexico. He was a baker, and he came across the Rio Grande, served in our military, became a United States citizen. And when his family was young, my father was about 5 years old, he moved the family from Las Cruces, New Mexico, to Las Vegas. And he was in search of a better life for himself, for his wife, and for his family. My mom's family, similar story. Her 2 great-grandfathers are from Italy, and they came, like every other immigrant, through Ellis Island. They settled in Kansas City, Missouri, and that's where my mother was born. And when her parents decided, as a young couple, they needed to make an opportunity to succeed in their family, my grandfather took the family and moved them to Las Vegas, and he worked in the casinos. My grandfather moved to Las Vegas to work in the casinos. He was a pit boss, and he retired after decades of working in the casinos. And as a young girl growing up in Las Vegas, my parents worked hard like everyone else. My dad was a parking attendant at the old Dunes Hotel and Casino. He was a Teamster, and very proud of it. And my mother, And my mother worked when we were little. She was a bookkeeper at a title company for real estate. But you know, thanks to their hard work, my sister and I became the first in our family to graduate from college. I went on later to, serve. I served the state of Nevada later on as their attorney general for 8 years, standing up to the big banks for throwing families out of their homes during the subprime mortgage crisis, worked with your then Attorney General, Lisa Madigan, who is on the front lines of that as well. It's fantastic to work with her and her team. And in Nevada, we forced the big banks really to come back and pay and take care of those families. So forced them to pay about $1.9 billion in housing relief to Nevadans. And then in 2016, I won my first race to the United States Senate, as you heard, and became the first woman ever elected to the Senate from Nevada and the first Latina ever elected in the history of this country. Now, around this time last year, a lot of people in Washington were saying that I couldn't win. They were saying the headwinds were too strong, that inflation was too high, and it is, and it was. The midterms never go well for the party in power. That's what I kept hearing. In fact, I even found out later that one Republican billionaire literally wagered a bet against me winning in Nevada. Now, here's what I know growing up in Nevada. You never get bet against the House, right? We won. Not only did we win, but we won by 7,928 votes. And I'll tell you, in Nevada, that is a landslide. Harry Reid's votes were 400. That is a landslide. We did it. And we are back. And Democrats, not only did we win Nevada, but we maintained that Senate majority, and we actually have 51 seats in the Senate right now for that control. Thanks to many of you in this room. And I will tell you, and this is what I talk about at home, not only did Nevada make a difference when it comes to really that control of the Senate, but at the end of the day, we picked up and made sure that Raphael Warnock would return from Georgia. And I will tell you, when we got back to the Senate, floor, we hugged. I saw Raphael, we went up and hugged each other. Congratulations, congratulations. And he said to me, you know, because you won in Nevada, your win helped me win. Because when the Republicans in my state realized that the Senate was no longer in contention for control, they stayed home. And that helped me win in Georgia as well. And I tell you that because it's not just the Democrats in Nevada and Georgia that should be proud of that work across this country. It is everyone in this room. Because what happens nationally is just as important what happens locally and in our states. So thank you. So, you all know the race wasn't easy. I'm sure many of you I've heard already were biting their nails like I was, waiting for that Saturday final vote to come in. But here's what I know in Nevada. Here's why I know why we won and why this is so important for Democrats and just literally anybody who's running for office to really pay attention to. Because Nevada's a purple state. A purple state. We have 33% Democrats, 29% Republicans, and 30% nonpartisans. That is growing. And it's because of that purple state, and you represent many red and blue counties, so you get this. Nevada also is a majority minority state. And so it is very unique, and I've said this time and again, it is a microcosm of the rest of the country. If you can come into Nevada and connect and talk to our voters, you are going to be successful nationally if that is your goal. Here's what I know about the voters and what they care about in Nevada. They care about economic security for them and their families. They are not opposed to working hard, but they believe one job should be enough to provide for their families. Yep. And they have been struggling under the weight of high prices and high inflation. And like everyone else, they want safe communities to live in. They want to know that when they come home at the end of the day, they won't have to worry about violence in their neighborhoods or drugs on their streets. Now, here's what I know about Democrats. We understand these individuals because we are them. We are them. We are the party of working families. We do live in their communities, and we have been working on their behalf. But here's the thing, we just have to be willing to show up and talk to them about it and meet them where they live. That's what I did in Nevada. Let me give you an example. Organized labor is 11% of the workforce in Nevada. These are the blue-collar jobs in my state. These men and women helped carry me to victory, from our hospitality workers in the culinary union to the IBEW to the Southwest carpenters to the laborers, all the building trades, you name it, they were there. Why? Because I showed up. I talked with them and listened to them. Our unions knew I was on their side, that I had their back, and they were willing to tell their neighbors about it. And with President Biden in the White House, we've done a lot of good for the American public. On the campaign trail, I had thousands of new, good-paying Nevada jobs to point to because of the work that we did. And those are union jobs, by the way. I also talked about my work with law enforcement and how we provided critical resources to first responders across the country, including mental health resources, because that's what Democrats delivered in this country. But I'll tell you what, we also can't be afraid to talk about the tough issues. We've got to lean into it, because gas prices were skyrocketing last year, especially in Nevada. We were way above $5 a gallon on election day. We were above the national average. And you can't ask people to vote for you if you're not addressing the problems that they're seeing right in front of them. So I talked about how I worked to hold big oil companies accountable for hiking gas prices while their executives were taking home huge bonuses. I also talked about how we took on Big Pharma, forcing them to bring down prescription drug prices and cap the cost of insulin at $35 for those on Medicare. It truly is, it is something for us to get out and share and not be afraid to talk about what we have done. Working families can trust Democrats to bring down housing costs, to bring jobs from overseas, and to keep them safe. Why? Because we've shown it. We've done it with the legislation that we have passed. And I'll tell you what, here's the other thing I say to them. Here's what we've done, here's what I've done, and here's what Democrats have done and what we've done together at a national level to help your families. But you can't say the same for our opponents on the far right. You can't say that, and they know it. Just last June, Mitch McConnell's Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. We've been talking about that. And everything changed for voters across my state, because Nevada is a pro-choice state. In 1990, incredible women got together and they put an initiative petition on the ballot to codify Roe versus Wade in state statute in 1990. So we are a proud pro-choice state. And I kept hearing, I will tell you, I kept hearing from the national press, well, that's not going to bring people out because you're already there. You're already a pro-choice state. I said, What I know as a Nevadan and as a woman, and what Nevadans know and voters in Nevada, is they're not done. If they can overturn Roe versus Wade, there's nothing stopping them from coming after our state. And I was saying that at the same time that Lindsey Graham was introducing a law at the federal level to restrict abortion across this country. And to me, this was just an incredible issue, like everything else we were talking about, that pulled my voters out. Everywhere I went around the state, I don't care if you were Democrat or Republican and nonpartisan, I don't care if you're from an urban area or a rural area, everyone in Nevada was concerned. They knew this was a threat to our freedoms. I had press conferences around the states with Republicans talking about this very issue. And you know what? It's true across the country. We all see it and feel it. Just look what happened in Ohio last week. This is a crucial issue for us to continue to talk about, because they're not stopping. They're not stopping at just overturning Roe versus Wade. States' rights doesn't mean anything to them. They're coming after other things and women's freedoms when it comes to contraception and so many others. If they are looking at local level to criminalize women from moving from a state that has restricted abortion to a state like mine or Illinois, we have to hold them out and hold them accountable. That's why I introduced legislation to allow those women to travel to states like ours to seek the health care that they need. That's what this is about. We have to stand up. We have to be vocal about this, because we are on the right side of history. We are on the right side for women who, by the way, are half of this population of this country. And we should have equality. We should have those rights like everyone else. But it's those extremist Republicans who are determined to turn back the clock on women's rights. We're seeing that in the Senate right now. It's playing out. Right now, we have one far-right senator from Alabama who is risking our national security and holding up hundreds of military promotions in an effort to strip women service members of their access to reproductive freedom and health care. It is outrageous, and it's unacceptable. But I'll tell you what, no one is fighting harder to stop him than our good friend, Senator Tammy Duckworth. She is on the front of that fight. And we all know never to bet against Tammy. I'll tell you what, we have to call these extremists out at every opportunity. My opponent last year, he was the co-chair of Donald Trump's campaign. He went around the state of Nevada and trying to not only help the former defeated president, but he went around talking about how the election was stolen from former President Trump. He talked about publicly in press conferences around the state that Nevada's votes were not accurate. And all across the country, we're seeing far-right Republican candidates who not only stood up to Trump, stood by Trump, but actually helped him fuel the mob that attacked the Capitol on January 6th. There is a connection. There is a connection. And for me, the January 6th hearings, the conversation that was happening at the time of my election, people were paying attention in Nevada. Republicans, Democrats, nonpartisan, they were all paying attention. There was not one place I could go in Nevada without somebody coming up and just disgusted about what they were watching and individuals undermining our democracy. And they connected the dots between those that were inciting the mob, by those that wanted to try to undermine our democracy by overturning that election. They connected the dots to the two. And we see that playing out right now. I'm here to tell you that Republicans in my state were so outraged that we stood together in northern Nevada and we did a press conference talking about the concerns that we all had about our democracy and it be undermined by individuals who claimed that elections were stolen, that incited that mob. And it is still happening today. So it is on Democrats to keep fighting back against these dangerous policies that are threatening to move us backward, whether it's reproductive rights, whether it's workers' rights, or voting rights. And you know the most effective way we're doing that? One of the ways is through our federal judges. And I have to thank Dick Durbin for the incredible work that he is doing to efficiently and effectively confirm qualified judges to the federal bench. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing with President Biden, a Democratic Senate majority, and we need to make sure we can continue that work beyond 2024 and at a federal level, flip that House. There is so much at stake for us, and at the end of the day, I was able to win my race because voters knew that I was standing with them and I understood what they were going through. But to get over that finish line, I needed strong local Democratic infrastructure to get that message out. That's why we need early dollars in our state and county parties. That investment in knocking on doors and organizing is the only way to make sure our candidates are being heard. That's what pulled me across the finish line. And it's not just the people in Nevada, you know this, many of you were either came out to Nevada and knocked on doors, or you did postcards or letters or financial support. That's how we as Democrats, that's our strength. That makes a difference at the end when you have a race like mine or so many others to help our candidates get across the finish line. It is important for our state and county parties like yours to stay in the fight here and across the country. We have lots of critical Senate seats to protect in 2024. One of them I'm going to call right now is Senator Jackie Rosen in Nevada. It is going to be a tough fight, and we got to make sure we keep her there. But here's what I know. Here's what I know at the end of the day. Democrats need to show up and stand with working families. We need to continue to work to protect our reproductive freedoms, to fight for our democracy. If we can make that happen, we will keep Joe Biden in the White House for another term, we will control Congress and keep this country on the right track. Now, I started by saying it was incredible to make history as the first Latina in the United States Senate. But to me, it's more than just about making history. And by the way, if you don't know, Nevada, I said, is a majority minority state. 30% of the population are Latinos. We still have a strong, robust African American community, about 10%. We have one of the fastest growing Asian and Pacific Islander communities in the country. It's right now about 9%, predominantly Filipinos. We have a strong block of Native Americans who come out and vote, that we fought for their opportunity to vote in their communities. And I'll tell you, a lot of our white working class are in the service industry. That's our blue collar. And as you've heard, 11% of our workforce are organized labor. It's an incredible state. I am very, very proud of the diversity. But here's what I know. Here's what I know as somebody who grew up there and went through the public school system. It is one thing to make history as the first Latina or the first woman from the great state of Nevada. But it's more than that to me. It's about opening that door. It's about making sure that you bring other people with you and you never pull up the ladder behind you. It's recognizing that we all have a responsibility to help forge a path for others, just as others did for us. Now, that's why I love the work that Dick is doing, and I join him on protecting our dreamers. It is so essential. That's why organizations, and he talked about it earlier, that's why organizations like Loretta Durbin's I Will is important to bring more women to elective office, more women that I see in this room as a result of it. We all know this. Everyone who comes to this country is seeking the American dream. The idea that if you work hard and you play by the rules, you can achieve a better life for you and your kids. And my family was no different. I told you that my father was a parking attendant when my sister and I were little. What you don't know is that my father, Manny Cortez, worked hard his entire life to provide for his family. And later on in life, he became the president and CEO of the Convention and Visitors Authority. He served there for 13 years until he retired. While he was there, his marketing team coined the phrase, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." Have you guys heard that? My parents lived the American dream, and they never forgot where they came from. And they taught my sister and I the same thing. Always give back. You didn't do this alone. What my parents taught me is that the strength of our democracy is not in our individual well-being, but in the well-being of all individuals. That's who we are as Democrats, and that's what we fight for every day. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to join you today. Have an incredible time at the State Fair. Thank you.